President Biden stepped out of the race, and Kamala Harris has quickly stepped in. The vice president now stumping in her quest to become the first female president of the United States.
I'll tell you why we're not going back. Because ours is a fight for the future. And it is a fight for freedom.
We have local reaction to the change on the ticket and how a Democrat should feel about whether their primary vote really counted. Plus, how will Republicans respond and how does the strategy change? Our political analyst and our reporter covering the national political conventions weigh in. And Jacksonville law enforcement trying to gather more information from the community. Why and where town halls are scheduled in the coming month on This Week in Jacksonville. Thanks for being with us. So much has happened in the 1 week since President Biden announced on social media that he would no longer run for re-election. He addressed the nation Wednesday night from the Oval Office, and he has thrown his support behind Vice President Kamala Harris to become the Democratic Party nominee. Joining us in studio, Biden supporter Rahman Johnson, who serves on Jacksonville City Council in District 14. And I say that because, Councilman, you were here just 2 weeks ago explaining your support of President Joe Biden. How do you feel about this transition to a different top of the ticket now?
Well, first of all, Joe Biden is a great American. He's given 50 years to this country. We are certainly a grateful nation for all that he's done. But as we move on, I am also, as a delegate, not only am I a member of Team Biden and was working for him and traveling as a surrogate, but I'm also a delegate to the Democratic National Convention, which I'm excited about. But my support, I've pledged my support to Vice President Harris, as the president has done. I think she has earned the right, and she was half of the ticket in the beginning. So I don't feel like it's a wasted vote, and I'm looking forward to see what the first female president of the United States brings to bear.
So let me work through a couple of those things you just mentioned. Are you sad or disappointed that President Biden is not running for re-election?
Absolutely. I talked about it on Twitter. I had to say, or X as we call it now. I had to say that I was really disappointed. I was fervently behind the president, but I really felt that we kind of pushed the president out as Democrats. I kept hearing this chorus of voices left and right, and until he was out, he was not, and we should have been as supportive as we could have. So yes, I was disappointed, but I believe that his swan song in the next few months are going to show that he still is in control of his faculties, that he still is a great American, that he's still a great American president, and he showed it when he put his support behind Vice President Harris.
We've been watching, and the first few events for Vice President Harris as lots of enthusiasm. Are you as enthusiastic about Kamala Harris as you were about Joe Biden?
I absolutely am. She was a part of the reason I was enthusiastic for Joe Biden. She was a part of that ticket. I joined about 30 to 40,000 other black men specifically on a call last week. And on this call, we raised $1.5 million just in that night on the call. There was a previous call for black women on the night before. They raised $1.67 million because, you know, women do it better, as they say. But they did a great job, and it's activating because we feel, I haven't seen this much energized engagement in such a long time. I was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention for Gore Lieberman back in 2000. And this is something that has been unprecedented. We've never been this close to the convention and having to create the whirlwind of hoopla. It's happening, and it's really exciting. So yes, I am just as excited, if not more, about this new possibility. I think the only thing that'll make it more exciting is when we know who the vice presidential pick is going to be.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I have my thoughts.
So, and I'll ask you about that.
Sure.
So talk to Democrats who feel like, hey, why is Harris automatically going to be our nominee? Why isn't there going to be an open convention? Why isn't there an opportunity for delegates to have more options to consider?
So as one of the people who sit on that committee and understand the rules of how it works, there's a process. And the vice president was a part of the process. So I think to have leapfrogged over her and just reopen it again would have been disingenuous to the process itself. That's number one. But number two, I think that's most important, I haven't heard that. The Democrats that I've been speaking to across the country, delegates in other states, other elected officials in other states, on these national calls I've been on, and the small teams that we've worked on high levels, we are not hearing a chorus of it was not open and democracy was not in play. So I hear maybe a minority saying that, but what I believe is that people just want to make sure that fairness happens. And again, we won't know what happens until we get to Chicago, but the majority of people that are delegates who are either elected or appointed have pledged to Vice President Harris. So I think it's been a fair and impartial process.
Let me ask about this. For the moment, Vice President Harris certainly has momentum and money on her side. Why do you believe Kamala Harris can win this election?
Well, I believe she's pragmatic. I believe she's coming to the table. She's said it before. She has prosecuted people like the opponent. The opponent comes to the table. Here's a 34-time convicted felon. Here is someone who has repeatedly said that I do not believe in the woman's right to choose. Here is someone who has said egregious things about women, who even has come back and found a way to taunt President Biden even after he put country above self. I think everyone should come down. This is a guy we just heard recently at the Republican National Convention who literally sat there and said, it is now time for us to come together. And then just after that, he came in and bashed the president saying, well, tomorrow I believe he's going to come back and forget that he dropped out. This is a time when America can really see what bipartisanship looks like. And I don't think the opponent has done that. I believe the vice president brings that to the table. She brings intelligence. She's won statewide elections. She's been on the national stage for the last 3.5 years. And I think we're going to see something different because people want to see the elegance and sophistication of what it takes to occupy the Oval Office. And the person who's in the Naval Observatory right now, she's got it.
So the question about money, some people said, oh, that's why the vice president is automatically going to be moved forward on the ticket or higher on the ticket because that campaign money from Joe Biden goes with her. Is it about money?
No, it's not, because the vice president alone, just since she got in the race, has raised well over $100 million. It is probably
a stunning first 24 hours.
It is. It was
$81 or $85
stunning.
million.
It was, and the money continues to roll in. I've gotten invitations from friends across the country. As you know, I spent many years in news and other facets of entertainment as well. I've gotten invitations from friends across the country who are having small events in their homes, raising all kinds of money. So this is just the beginning of this. People, if the numbers I was just looking at, the people that are giving are people that never gave before. This is the first time they've given to politics on a national level because they see the opportunity. And I think that's the beauty of where we are right now. Nothing against the other side, but when you look at it, there is a clear contrast between both candidates. And Kamala Harris is the winning person. She has what it takes to be the president.
Yeah. Rahman Johnson, I appreciate it. Thank you for giving us some of your insight. And we will catch up with you before, after, or both on the Democratic National Convention next month.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
So we're turning the focus to the Republican ticket in our next segment. Political analyst Rick Mullaney and reporter Scott Johnson. They're next on This Week in Jacksonville. Stay with us.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Yeah, the Republican National Convention usually provides a big bump for the nominee and the party. That revving of the engine was quickly stopped when President Biden made his announcement just days after the RNC concluded. Joining us now and in this segment of our show, News4Jax political analyst Rick Mullaney and Scott Johnson, our anchor reporter who covered the RNC in person in Milwaukee. And so, Scott, let's talk about this. Democrats, they seem to agree with Republicans that the RNC was special this year. What was it like?
It could not have been any different than ones I think we've seen in the past. First off, I would say the Republican Party, which is historically a party that's not always unified. You have the evangelical wing, you have the business wing, you have the national security wing. Everyone was kind of unified because of what happened 2 weekends ago where former President Trump was shot in the ear in Pennsylvania. That dramatically shifted and changed everyone's perspective. Everyone was there to support the president, to somewhat cheer that he had survived an assassination attempt. And so it really did have a unified party feel. I did not notice in 5 days there any sort of hubbub on the floor, people complaining, people opposed to anything. There was a pretty unified mood there.
Rick, from our vantage point, watching it on TV, that's what it seemed like for us, too.
Oh, it clearly did. This convention was different, as Scott mentioned. Three pieces of it. One was the unity. This was a unified party. Second was the energy, and I think the weekend before that assassination attempt elevated the entire convention. And then the third piece was the defining of Donald Trump after that assassination as strong, but also a little bit different. It humanized him some. So they certainly had a very, very good convention.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing on the humanizing just real quick.
Yes, sir.
A few things that I noticed. There was a big push to humanize Trump because he has been characterized, for whatever reason, like him or don't like him, there's been a push to characterize him as this unfeeling, angry, whatever, however you want to characterize it. Putting out his granddaughter to speak speeches like that to make him feel like the grandfather, the loving, doting grandfather and family man. There was really a push for that, I noticed.
So high moments included former President Trump's arrival in the arena on Monday, obviously. Of course, his acceptance speech Thursday. What about Wednesday? Senator J.D. Vance, as he became Trump's running mate, what was the reaction to that selection there in the arena?
A few things are happening. Frankly, people don't know J.D. Vance. Let's be honest. It is what it is. I mean, people are now learning who this Ohio senator is. What does J.D. Vance bring to the ticket? And Rick and I were talking before the show. I think the calculation on the Trump campaign is he brings the Rust Belt. That's Pennsylvania, that's Michigan, that's Ohio, where he's from, maybe Wisconsin. So the goal is, does he play well in that Rust Belt? He wrote that book, Hillbilly Elegy, which I heard from people. I'm downloading this book now. They want to know who this J.D. Vance is. He's extremely young. He is a contrast to prior to President Biden dropping out. Before President Biden dropped out last week, we didn't know. We had an old ticket. We had a 78, 77, 78-year-old, a man in his 80s. Then we bring in a 39-year-old. So there was that excitement over the youth. But there's still a lot of knowledge. They got to figure out who this guy is. This J.D. Vance guy is new to the American public, and they're trying to learn who he is.
In his first week of campaigning, we're seeing some of that youth and inexperience and what have you. Rick, let's dive into strategy for Republicans. And now that Joe Biden isn't running, how does Trump-Vance, how does that ticket pivot, adjust to what's going to happen here, presumably with Kamala Harris and an unknown vice presidential candidate?
Well, their top priority is right now, and that is to define Kamala Harris before she defines herself. And this is always the case in political campaigns. And you've already seen they've started with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. They're going to define her as a far-left radical, as a California liberal, as a San Francisco, as a liberal. All those say the same thing, that she's to the left. And they're going to point to her record, her 4 years in the U.S. Senate. They're going to point to when she ran for president. But in particular, I think they're going to tie her to the Biden policies. Immigration in particular. If there's one policy that Donald Trump has been identified with, certainly since 2015 when he came down the escalator, it is immigration, and it is alive and well in this race. And they're going to call her the border czar. Right. They're going to make her responsible for it, and they're going to go after her on immigration. But it won't be just that. It'll be economic policies such as inflation, such as crime, such as energy policy, tax policy. So I think you can see them go a policy route. But they're not going to let her forget her record in the Senate, and when she ran for president, they're going to be talking about a lot of policies that suggest she's far left. That's how they want to define her. They're also going to suggest that she was maybe a little bit complicit in not being forthcoming about the condition of Joe Biden and his cognitive decline. You can expect a strong Democratic rebuttal, but the race is on to define Kamala Harris because, quite frankly, she's really not that well known by many in the country.
So, Scott, you're going to handle our coverage of the Democratic National Convention next month in Chicago. And after what you just experienced in Milwaukee, is it possible that the DNC could be even more historic, more
possibly
stunning to us?
I'll just say this. I'm getting the sense the DNC may mirror, in some respects, the RNC. A week ago, I didn't think that. A week ago, I thought we've got a disunified party. Biden's gone. Harris is here. We may have a contested convention. But over the last week, we have seen the party really come behind Harris. It's possible before they even get there, they may have some sort of online vote, and this is just essentially a party for TV. Right. So if they continue to get behind Harris and the party's all on board, this may be an uncontested convention. However, that being said, it's still politics. There's still weeks to go, and there may still be segments of the Democratic Party who want to be heard. That's the big thing that we need to see. If there are vocal segments within the party who are maybe not backing Harris 100%, we'll have to see if they speak up.
Yeah, just Rick, a final thought on that in maybe 30 seconds or less for the DNC.
Oh, I think it's going to be an extraordinary convention and different. The assassination attempt with Donald Trump launched that convention. Joe Biden dropping out has changed this race entirely. The Democrats are now unified. They're raising a lot of money. This will be resolved well before August 19th is when the convention starts. You'll have your VP pick. You'll have your top of the ticket pick. They will be young. They'll be energetic. They'll be taking on Donald Trump. I expect to have a very unified Democratic Party in this convention. I expect it to rival the RNC.
Yeah. Even a month ago, things weren't as interesting. And now it's, everybody, every day, what's the latest? So, Rick Mullaney, Scott Johnson, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, so turning to local law enforcement, which is turning to local community members, an effort by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to connect through town hall meetings. We'll talk about that next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
Yeah, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is going to be conducting town halls district by district. And the first one is in District 1. It's coming up on Thursday, August 1st. And then each Thursday, there will be a town hall. What's the reason? What's the format? What's the opportunity for you to participate? So joining us right now, Assistant Chief Jimmy Ricks from District 1, Assistant Chief Harry Massey from District 5, along with Vic Michelucci, the Community Engagement Executive for JSO, our former colleague here at Channel 4. I'm glad you're back. Nice to see you at this table.
Happy to be back.
So, Chief Ricks, let's talk. Your district gets to go first here.
Yes, sir.
What's the outcome you're looking for? What do you want to get out of these town halls?
Having an opportunity to connect with the community, them to have an opportunity to connect with our sheriff and hear what we're doing, just district specific. Some of our challenges from a downtown perspective is making downtown safe for citizens to come down and visit, enjoy the nightlife, go to special events. So we have a lot of challenges that we work with, but we get a lot of good feedback. But it's an opportunity for them to submit questions answered by the sheriff,
Yeah.
It's great.
So that's District 1 is that downtown area.
Downtown, San Marco, Springfield, a little bit of Riverside, Brooklyn area.
Okay.
So,
all right, we're coming back to that idea.
Yes,
Chief
sir.
Massey, I want to hear from you. District 5, that town hall is at the end of August. Are there some specific challenges in your neighborhoods there that are different than what we'd see downtown and what you're going to hear from attendees?
I wouldn't say so much different. I think that certain concerns in my district are similar in other districts, but you have homes under construction, being burglarized or homes being remodeled and people breaking in them because they know they're vacant. When we all have we're plagued with auto thefts and break-ins to vehicles, but it tends to be, consolidated in certain areas that we try to do our deployments on, and we try to keep them areas safe.
At each town hall, I understand Sheriff T.K. Waters is going to be there, along with officers who serve in that particular district, and answering questions, listening to what residents want to share. So, Vic, with the sheriffs, we've seen them walking in the communities and that kind of thing, trying to meet people and then hear from them. How does a town hall compare, and do you expect good attendance at these events?
We hope for good attendance, and it's really an incredible opportunity to engage with people and to showcase what we already have in place. We already have so many amazing resources throughout our entire city because we serve the entire city, but not everybody even knows how much goes on within JSO. So it's really, really a special opportunity, one, to engage with the sheriff and our senior leaders that work downtown, but also to engage with the leadership and the officers that patrol the streets in the neighborhoods where you live. So Chief Ricks has a different scenario than Chief Massey might have. We have 4 other district commanders, 6 total districts throughout the city, and each district in essence is like its own police department. And then they come together and they work downtown with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So it's really an incredible opportunity to get up there, ask your questions, bring your concerns, and meet these officers who are, in fact, Kent, your neighbors as well.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So each of those districts is like their own police department. So is that based on the population? Is it based on the size of those districts? Or why would we characterize it like that?
so it's a great question. Basically, what Sheriff Waters did was he realigned the districts to actually formulate more to each district having the same amount of calls, the same amount of officers. So each one of us should have a little over 100 officers, some having more specialized units, but being able to respond to those calls for service spreads everybody out, and then we have a quicker response, and then it helps them to get out of their cars and engage with the community. Yeah. It helps us to kind of even out the playing field for all of the districts. mainly the goal.
Chief Massey, have you had these occasions? I talked about, I'd gone with Sheriff Williams and others on these, sheriff's walks. Have you had an opportunity to participate in some of these town hall events like this before?
As we had the original town hall a year ago, and it was obviously the entire Sheriff's Department staff and revealing the reorganization program and showing what we're doing, redrawing the boundaries. As far as town hall meetings, we'll have the first one coming up on the 1st, but we have Sheriff's Watch meetings. We also have some community events where community affairs will come in and will help with a certain neighborhood to help clean up and work with the community that way.
Yeah, so I want to show here's the schedule and the locations for each of the town halls. First one arrives this Thursday at the main library downtown, that's on Laura Street, and then each town hall starts at 6 o'clock in the evening. Each district, they're hosting the town hall, and then they're each Thursday until September 5th. And before we wrap it up completely here, this idea of hearing from the citizens, your customers, the people you really want to take care of.
Absolutely.
What's that one thing that you would love to hear from folks when they talk to you?
Hear the feedback, whether it be good or bad. A lot of times where we can change how we're doing things, but actually them having a voice and then hearing it in front of the sheriff and then having us an opportunity to respond to it. And of course, we want District 1 to be the best, so I want that the most.
No. Every district is equal, sir.
Six-way
Sorry,
tie. Just wrap us up here. Is your engagement efforts here? This is part of that, right?
We are always improving at the sheriff's office, and I have seen so much of that. And here's the deal, Kent. So we are engaging with people. We're trying to meet them where they are, in their neighborhoods, instead of making everybody go downtown. But there are so many other events. Maybe this doesn't work for you. Maybe your neighborhood doesn't work. Come to another one. But we are engaging with people day in and day out. And right now we're working on doing a better job of showing people those opportunities and getting them involved. But we're doing that on social media. We're doing that through work with our news partners and the outlets around the town. We're doing that with meeting with anybody that asks us to. Our officers are approachable, and that is the message. Yeah. Like, we all live in this city together. We all want it to thrive and be safer and healthier and happier. And we can do that through these partnerships.
Vic Nicolucci, I appreciate it. Chief Massey and Chief Ricks, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I appreciate the time. And next week, our friend Rick Mullaney, he's going to host our show. He's going to be joined by Mega Parekh from the Jaguars, JU Law School Dean Nick Allard. This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning this time. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17, and then online at news4jax.com or streaming on News4Jax Plus.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.